This is Makara. There's two of them. They look like they might be doorway or gateway guards. Is associated with water and guards the entrance of Hindu and Buddhist temples. According to Indian mythology, Makara is the mount of Indra, the god of the celestial ocean. The sculpture portrays Makara in combat posture, raised head and front paws, bulging eyes, open jaws with curved lips and protruding fangs. He's the mount of the god of the celestial ocean. It's worth getting closer to this. That's an interesting Buddha from a different culture, so it doesn't look like the Buddhas we're used to.
Yeah, and I think as we've talked about before, there were different folks with that title.
Also different from 7th to 15th centuries. That it makes sense. It's not, you don't really see it anymore around here, but this was in Cham sculpture. This is Islamic garb.
Huh.
So that
I can definitely kind of see it in the hats. You can see it in the hats for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The lady's head, what do you call them? Head pieces?
The head coverings, yeah.
Head coverings, yeah. It makes sense in time, and it was, again, a port city, so at least, I don't know how much, but at least some level of trade. Actually, I do. It was a port city, and there was a lot of trade. I remember when we were at the Da Nang Museum, we talked about this, and I wasn't even thinking about, like, I didn't know when the Cham were active. I didn't at the time. I wasn't aware, so I was thinking it was Viet culture, but this is the Cham, so they weren't. I've read that they were a big empire in the area, but now I'm realizing they were actually active and trading with other cultures. And
well, at that time, I guess they would have been trading with, Islam in the Middle East and East Africa, maybe.
This is from the Cham Kingdom, which predates the Viet occupation of the area.
Okay.
So this museum was founded. I think it was a couple of hundred years before the French arrived. Let's see, spanning centuries. Sculptures date from the 7th to 15th centuries.
Oh, wow, that's a big hunk of time.
Yes, they were here for a long time. That's it's hard to get a grasp on time. Sometimes for me it is anyway. But the West only ever knew this as Vietnam, but for centuries it was Cham.
Huh.
Like, again, not too big on giving advice on the channel, just showing, but I would recommend this museum to anybody interested in culture and history who's come into Da Nang.
Yeah, because you can get a good idea, even if you're not a big sculpture person. Like I'm not big on sculptures, but it's interesting to get an idea of what people from different eras and places and stuff thought were important enough, because the sculpture is a pretty big undertaking, especially the farther back you go. It's a big deal. It's a lot of time and expense and labor and that kind of thing. And this is what people thought were important.
Yeah, right.
And we've learned as much history kind of about the area, I think, as much as and religion and that kind of thing for these folks as anything with the sculptures themselves.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know about you either. I mean, I don't mean to knock painting, but a museum like this just is a lot more visceral than an art museum that just has paintings. Like, you feel what's going on.
Yeah, because it's three-dimensional, and I think that's part of it for sure.
Yes, that's right.
If you're listening to this in the very distant future and are of a different sentient species,
the robots that destroyed us, you should know we didn't live that long anyway. Don't feel bad.
I mean, feel a little bad.
All right, so there's a blend of Buddhism and Hinduism in Cham culture.
I believe it from what I very generally remember. Like, obviously, like as we've said, Buddhism sort of grew out of Hinduism as its own thing. But there were some very general, very surface level generalities about,
Hmm.
be good to each other, and you know, I
Sure.
both believe in reincarnation. I do believe based on,
Oh.
and that is affected by your actions in life and that kind of stuff. So
Ah. So we said from the 7th to the 15th centuries.
yes,
Can you guess what religion these uh, uh, costumes? I've got costumes written, but that doesn't sound quite right in English. But
are they
this garb,
religious vestments? Okay,
I don't think they're religious, but they're associated with a religion that
I
matches
see.
up in time.
Because the sculpture is a pretty big undertaking, especially the farther back you go. It's a big
Right.
deal. It's a lot of time and expense and labor and that kind
Hmm.
of thing. And this is what people thought were important.
Yeah. Right.
And you get a. We've learned as much history kind of about the area. I think as much as and religion and that kind of thing for these folks as anything with the sculptures themselves.
Hmm. Well, I don't know about you either. I mean, I don't mean to knock painting, but a museum like this just is a lot more visceral than an art museum that just has paintings. Like you feel what's going on.
Yeah, because it's 3 dimensional and I think that's part of it for sure. But and again, I don't want to knock paintings at
You know,
all. I mean, I do. I mean,
I like
I
an
do
art
some
museum,
painting. I
regular
mean,
art.
it's little, with little miniatures and stuff. I mean, I know it's a skill and it's a lot of artistry that goes into it, but there's just this is an investment. As again, I think especially as you go farther back, than
Time,
than
energy, and
up. Yeah,
resources. Yeah, sure.
yeah,
Do you remember the second elephant god that we talked about?
yes.
That
I
we
can't
don't.
remember their name, but
Now let me let me try it again, which I'm sure I'm not getting it right. Gajashimha. Gajashimha.
okay.
That's him. So he's not an anthropomorphic elephant, so that is a big distinction, big difference. Still gonna read anything about him. Hold on.
Okay.
Despite some
Hmm.
Chinese, Indian, and other influences, the sculptures and architecture of the Dongzong displayed strong indigenous elements which created this unique and impressive style of Cham art. Dongzong was excavated by Henri Parmentier and Charles Carpeau during the autumn of 1902. It is
Oh
also named
wow.
Elephant Land. As door guardians, statues of Gajashimha were placed in front of temples. This sculpture shows Gajashimha with a raised trunk, neck adorned with a ring of bells, layers of fur stylized in parallel strips, as seen commonly on sculptures of the Tapman period. Gajashimha is a favorite figure in Champa sculpture, but rarely seen in other Southeast Asian artistic traditions. Did I tell you there was a beer in Cambodia called Hanuman beer?
If you did, I've forgotten.
I mean, it's a good
It's
name for a
news to
beer.
me. Sure.
God of Mischief, that's what this has both Hindu and Buddhist influences. It features
Okay.
depictions of details from both religions reflecting the historical blend of beliefs in the Champa. If the kingdom is called the Champa Kingdom, Champa. The people are the Cham, and the kingdom is the Champa. It started out as Hindu sites, but were converted to Buddhism, when that came along to the area.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is just
Yeah.
about, are we even, yeah, we're still in this, no, are we in the Islamic part? I don't
Are
know.
we
This
filming?
garb looks. Are we on? Is this thing on? The Kate Festival is a religious festival that takes place in Cham. The festival includes three main rites: those at temple towers in the village and at family clans. At the heart of the festival are rituals held at temple towers like the dress procession, temple opening, deity bathing, and dressing and deity worship. The Kate Festival is held to
Okay.
honor the deities who have contributed to the homeland and villages, as well as to pay tribute to ancestors through offerings and ceremony. All right. Well, like I said, we were expecting a garden, so there may be a bit more on the way out. The sign says exit, but perhaps there's a garden on the way. There's certainly an interesting tree, which we will pause at. And I don't know if you're fascinated by these crazy looking trees, but I am. I kind of suspect it's more than one tree, to be honest.
Yeah, it looks like a thicket.
Yeah, it's all massed together, but I feel like there's more than one plant in all of that.
Wow.
Yes, impressive. Oh, there's a coffee shop over there. That's nice. Maybe this is the garden they were referring to. The sculptures here are crafted from sandstone, terracotta, and bronze. Each offering unique visual textures and styles. That's just a general comment on the museum.
And talked over the musical instruments back there too. I talked over all those.
Well, that's all right. So there's some must-see pieces in here. Keep your eye out for them. One is an exquisite bronze statue, the only bronze object in the museum. Okay, so apparently there's only one bronze. I don't think we've seen it yet.
No.
Ganesha and Gaja Simha. Powerful elephant-headed deities. Oh, there's two elephant-headed deities.
Oh, okay. I was not aware. I only know of Ganesha.
Right. Showing skilled carving techniques. So that's another one to keep our eye out for. The one downstairs that we looked at, there was only one sign that said Ganesha, and we talked about how they were very similar. So I'm sure there were two statues of the same deity. Altar pedestals, intricate carvings from ancient temples like Mison, offering insights into religious rituals.
Oh.
This is pottery, shaping raw pottery items, unglazed, I guess that's what they mean. Guangzhou is right there, and it's a trading port that goes back 2,000 years.
Oh, yeah. I was just thinking about places that might have been heavily Islamic.
Yeah, and Guangzhou has a section that's historically Islamic because they've been traded with.
Oh, really? Okay.
Middle East and East Africa for so long. Sure.
So
there are two cities in China.
I'm trying to remember. Go ahead.
There are two cities in China. Well, I said two cities. Two cities in the eastern part of China. Obviously, West China is majority Islamic, I think. But there are two cities in the east that have large Islamic populations, and the first is Guangzhou because of their connection, their port city, because the overseas connection, and the other one is the terminus for the Silk Road.
Mm-hmm.
So that all that trade is what brought Islamic beliefs in. Islam is the.
And I'm
Not that this is a China show, but Islam is the second most popular religion in China. Not that this is a China show, but Islam is the second most popular religion in China. They do occasional cultural performances and lectures on Cham culture and history. That's Vishnu, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Dancing Shiva. So these are from different sites too. Where I was asking where they're not all from the same. Collected artifacts, including linga, architectural decorations from Cham temples, Tempa of the dancing Siva, and 3 statues of Vishnu are rare sculptural masterpieces of the arts of the Champa. Due to the long period of wars, this place was abandoned until 1975, when the local agricultural cooperative bulldozed part of this site to make room for farming.
That's like a bird spirit or deity, isn't it?
That's what you were explaining to me. It's just a bird spirit.
I think it's spirit, kind of like what in Christian thought would be more like an angel. You know, like a sort of a lower on the power level in the hierarchy, I guess you'd say, and a sort of a servant of the gods, I think.
Okay. This was back when we were on the bridge. All right, let's move on. I'm not sure how small it looks. Small from the outside. The West only ever knew this as Vietnam, but for centuries it was Cham.
Huh. Were the Cham people more ethnically Southern Asian or Eastern Asian?
I'm there. the center of their empire, if I'm not mistaken, was what is now southern Vietnam.
Was now
So
southern
for all that
what?
time, they were southern Vietnam.
Okay.
So we're in central Vietnam now, and their empire stretched up this high.
Russ wants to know: are these items from around here, or were they brought here? I think they were from around here, from what Wesley was saying.
What I was reading earlier sounded like I don't think it specifically said they came from exactly right here, but they're from a site close by.
Yeah, like they're from the general like vicinity.
A place that the maybe the city was built on or is now built on, because it was saying that some of the items were unearthed when people moved in and started turning the land for farming.
Yeah.
So relatively close to the city. But I don't know.
Those are really detailed. Look at that.
I'll let you look at that while I read this. Dongzong.
That's not true.
If you're listening now, actually, even if you're in the future, put in the comments, let us know what we get wrong about Buddhism, because, this is not something that we grew up learning. So we're trying to piece it together from what we read.
I know a very little bit from like a couple college level courses, from an overview of Buddhism and Hinduism and that kind of thing. But that's really surface.
That's an interesting Buddha from a different culture. So it doesn't look like the Buddhas we're used to. There's a couple that are very popular that we're very familiar with, but we've been in statue galleries that show like a range of the Buddhas, and there's not all, they don't all look the same.
No. And I wonder if it's the Buddhas, all the Buddhas are supposed to be the reincarnation of the original, right?
The whole point of this is to expose ourselves to other cultures and learn a little about it. We're showing a learning process as we're doing it. So
I just don't want anybody to think I don't, I'm not being respectful. It says that the city was founded around 192 AD. Wow.
Yeah, I feel like we went. You weren't there for the day we went to the Da Nang Museum, right?
I don't think so.
We didn't. We might have had that fact in there. I don't recall it. 192. I believe it though. It's a port town, so it's bound to be fairly old. And
wow, jeez.
And it's the occupation of this area from the Cham. If he's counting all the way back to the Cham, it's totally believable because they have a very ancient culture. Or are a very ancient.
That's 1,800 years. Jeez, that's a long time for us humans.
More than 100 years ago, a French plantation was built in this Cham heritage site, so some stone-carved artifacts were collected and brought to Touraine, currently known as Da Nang City, by the French. Later, these artifacts were displayed in the Henri Parmentier Museum. These collected artifacts including, that's the current museum, currently known as the Da Nang Museum of Cham Sculpture. It's collected artifacts including linga, architectural decorations from Cham temples, Tempa of the Dancing Siva, and 3 statues of Vishnu. The images worshipped at Dongzong bear witness to the development of Mahayana Buddhism in Champa. Despite some Chinese, Indian, and other influences, the sculptures and architecture of the Dongzong displayed strong indigenous elements which created this unique and impressive style of Cham art. Look it up if you really want to know. I believe that they were only here for 100 years before the French invaded. Before that, for a long time, it had been, well, not before the French invaded, but before the French arrived. So the French traded here for a long time before they sent forces in. But the West only ever knew this as Vietnam, but for centuries it was Cham.
Huh. Certainly the first I've heard of him, but that doesn't, I'm a huge surprise.
Well, that may be why. You don't see it in other cultures. I mean, I take it that he's a regular deity in Hinduism, but that doesn't mean that he's depicted very often in sculpture.
Yeah, he just may be more important here for whatever reason to these. He spoke more to these people, I guess, than other places. And
right. Yeah. That's interesting. To me.
Other places. And
right. Yeah. That's interesting. To me. Excuse me. This is the world's largest collection of Cham sculpture. This museum house of Cham sculpture. This museum houses the world's largest collection of Cham sculpture. There's over 2,000 artifacts. Only 500 are on display, though. It says they have an extensive library and restoration workshop that contribute to ongoing research and preservation of Cham heritage. There are still
See,
Cham
that may
people,
be
by the
part
way.
of that may be
Oh,
part
this.
of it too. Is they've got all these. You said these like thousands of pieces, but they may not all be fully restored and stuff.
Well, they don't restore them all, but I assume there's something that has to go into presentation. I guess you can't just chuck it in a pile.
I would hope not. No.
They do occasional cultural performances and lectures on Cham culture and history. No, Hanuman is the god of something, and I want to say it's something like mischief or something like that, but I'm not.
I think it is mischief. Yeah.
That seems appropriate for a monkey.
Or like kind of like a Loki trickster kind of character, coyote from some of the Native American.
Jag är den sista och de här kommer då det personer som tar över. Jag är med sig kvar mig på dörren. Men jag kan rätt att det ställer upp en 4. Den är typ. Jag kan röra sig från. Gick om det. Ja. Jag är den sista och de här kommer då det personer som tar över. Jag är med sig kvar mig på dörren. Men jag kan rätt att det ställer upp en 4. Den är typ. Jag kan röra sig från. Gick om det. Ja.